Well, Wisconsinites know a thing or two about what it's like to experience snow and cold.
But how about spending months living in a place that can drop to a negative 100 degrees? Karin found out.
Yeah, I found a group of Wisconsinites. They're going to be headed to Antarctica to find out more clues about the planet's past, present, and the future.
We're also using this rig to set the casing as well.
Okay. So when most people think drill bits, this is what they think of. But when you think drill bits, this is what you think of.
So this is a drill bit we use for what's called our deep ice sheet coring drill in West Antarctica, where we drilled about 2 1/8 miles or 3,405 meters below the surface.
Jay Johnson is the lead driller with the U.S. Ice Drilling Program's Ice Drilling Design and Operations Group, also known as IDDO. This group, based out of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, designs and maintains large drills for National Science Foundation research in Antarctica.
This is what we call our 4-inch drill. So this is actually the winch and the motor that runs it.
The IDDO warehouse and machine shop on the east side of Madison holds every drilling part imaginable.
This is actually a drilling cable from one of the past U.S. deep drills.
Johnson has deployed to Antarctica 10 times and is gearing up for his 11th season on the ice.
We're calling this the Async Drill. Basically, it's a drill that's typically used for drilling minerals and rocks. And we're going to be using it for drilling first ice up through 700 meters of ice. And then after that, we're going to drill a couple meters or up to a couple meters worth of ice or rock below that.
And what are you looking for?
Yep, so the scientists, once we recover this rock, are looking to date that rock. And in Antarctica, they're looking to see how far the ice sheet has retreated in the past, and past thousands of years. So by giving them rock samples, they can look and do cosmogenic dating on that rock and tell when it was last exposed to the sun, and therefore when the ice sheet had been retreated all the way back or melted at the and then relate that to the climate models and what we could expect for the future.
The ASIG drill will be used in West Antarctica and will operate inside of a canvas tent.
Yep, it's just a canvas fabric and frame, yes. This tent is designed to handle up to 70-mile-an-hour winds, so we can work in just about any conditions. Yep.
And not blow away.
Not blow away.
And that's not the only tent Johnson and his crew will use on the ice.
This is a typical tent that we'll sleep in a deep field camp. Just call it an Arctic oven, appropriately named. These actually get quite comfy and warm when you're out in the cold.
And it can be,
sure. It's like a nylon fabric and has almost like a quilted inner layer to it. And these tents, even when it's well below zero, can get up well above freezing quite easily.
Do you have a heater in there?
Nope, no heat. This is just heated by the sun.
And so how long at a time are you staying in a tent like this?
Depending on field seasons, it can be up to 3 months at a time.
I bet you like your bed when you get home.
It does feel good to get back to your bed.
The biggest challenge the IDDO group deals with is the weather.
Our tent that we have at the South Pole Station right now saw minus 106 Fahrenheit this winter.
I'm still going back to this is your 11th season.
Yep.
What do you love about it?
I think the draw for me is it's the challenges. It's also a challenging place to work, but also the people we take down there and work with in the field are always very dedicated and very passionate about what they do. Whether it's a drilling type person or someone running a piece of machinery or a scientist, they're just really thrilled to be there and have a passion for it. So that kind of brings people back and to work in that environment.
You obviously have a passion for it.
I do.
How in the world do they deal with 100 degrees below zero?
It's pretty amazing to even think about, right? You just can't really comprehend.
Yeah, it's 20 below here. We're dying.
Right, yeah. They have their special gear that they wear, but Johnson, he says that when they arrive, they expect it to be around 40 below zero. And then by the height of their summer, which is the depth of our winter here, it should be about 10 degrees below zero. And you may be thinking, that still sounds really unreasonable, but he actually told me that it's kind of a dry cold down there as opposed to
like Phoenix,
Wisconsin's
a dry heat.
Damp cool, yeah. So it's a little different. And he said sometimes, it's more manageable down there in Antarctica than it is even here in Wisconsin.
Is it 24-hour sun too in this?
Yep. So they have to deal with that, when to sleep and not sleep, and sometimes they don't.
Oh, and the research must just be fascinating that they're doing there.
Thanks for their work. All right, Karin.
Really interesting. Thanks, Karin.
You're welcome.
weeks ago, you told us about a Wisconsin ice drilling group heading to Antarctica.
But they aren't the only group from Wisconsin heading to the ice.
Well, you may actually be surprised to hear this, but every year there are dozens of Wisconsinites that head to Antarctica. And I talked with one Wisconsin group that has a more than 50-year history of weather research on the ice.
Antarctica is the coldest continent in the world and the world's largest sheet of ice, but it's also home to the largest desert on the planet. There are large, snow-free valleys made up of loose rock and tall mountains, with the highest peak measuring more than 16,000 feet. A group based out of the University of Wisconsin at Madison has the job of recording and studying the weather across the entire Antarctic continent, including areas of treacherous terrain. The university first began studying Antarctic meteorology in the 1960s, a project that continues now as the Automated Weather Stations, or AWS project, with the Antarctic Meteorological Research Center.
Here we're actually looking at a mock-up of what one of our automatic weather stations in Antarctica looks like.
Matthew Lazzara, a professor at Madison College and a meteorologist with the Space Science and Engineering Center at the UW, is the principal investigator with the project.
They're placed all over the Antarctic continent. As it turns out, if you were to count up all the automatic weather stations around the Antarctic, there's probably on the order of 110, 120 automatic weather stations from every nation in the world that's participating in doing research in the Antarctic.
The station's constant observations will help scientists track the weather in hopes of gaining a better understanding of the world's climate. The AWS project runs and maintains almost 60 sites through funding by the National Science Foundation.
There's been no observations routinely made in this corner of the continent ever.
Lazzara and his team plan to install 2 new stations in West Antarctica this season. Lee Wellhouse, a meteorologist and instrument technician, will deploy to Antarctica this season for the 7th time. It's his job to assemble the automated weather stations and make sure they're functioning properly.
Usually when we get to the stations, they look something like this, actually quite similar to this, because they're slowly accumulating snow. So everything's low to the ground, and you have to add tower, you have to raise everything back up. Usually we dig them out every 3 to 5 years, sometimes more in higher accumulation zones, sometimes in areas where it's much more difficult to get to because of weather or any other issues. We've gone 7+ years without being able to visit them.
The stations are built to withstand harsh Antarctic weather conditions.
Hold on to that. That's pretty heavy, huh?
Yeah,
And
that
check
is.
out the momentum it takes to get that going.
Right.
So one year we went back, and this is all that was left. So this was just like the one you're holding.
That was this?
Yes. The wind caught up on the underneath and started to, and you can see it's bent this.
The original weather stations collected the basics, like temperature, pressure, relative humidity, and wind.
This is homemade,
Homemade
home built
in
here.
Wisconsin.
Over 35 years, some of them are that old, still operating. That's how good a piece of equipment this has been.
But the older stations are becoming too expensive to service and operate. So the group is transitioning the stations to include modern technology. And as a result, more observations can be taken.
And then one of my favorite instruments is what's called an acoustic depth gauge. This sends out pulses of sound and measures how long it takes that pulse of sound to hit the ground, rebound, and come back to the speaker.
The result is a snow
Based
depth
on that
measurement.
time-
We're sending people to do research out there and millions of dollars of equipment and airplanes and aircraft and stuff to do that work. Let's be safe about it. Let's learn about how the weather works so we have a good understanding and can make a good forecast for those folks out there. It is a really dangerous place to get caught and have something bad happen to you. We want that.
Studying Antarctic weather can also help tie the polar continent to the rest of the world.
It's a part of the Earth's climate system. You know, it's part of where the planet is losing a tremendous amount of energy out to space, and we want to be able to understand that and monitor it, watch it, understand how that's progressing through time.
The research is a team effort, a collaboration between Wisconsin and many nations.
We can't get there alone, and so it's one of the reasons why we love working in Antarctica is we get that opportunity to work with scientists worldwide. Put on the parka. Here you go. Great, big red, as they like to affectionately call it. There you go. How's that feel? You in good shape, Dan?
Yeah. And that red jacket that Matthew referred to as Big Red, that's part of the standard issue Antarctica gear, and there's a whole slew of special layers that each of the people deploying to Antarctica wears on the ice. but that's going to be a story that we'll have to save for next time.
Are they going to look at El Nino and its effect on Antarctica?
They are. You know, that's one of the ideas behind some of these new weather stations is to see how El Nino is affecting the climate, both down there as well as for the entire world.
How do they get there?
So it's a whole process. They actually go through Christchurch, New Zealand, and then from there they go down through McMurdo, and then they go out to the different spaces, the different sites that they need to
And they're there for how long?
Some of them are there for a couple of months. This group that's going to be going down with Lee and Carol, who you saw in the background, they leave just after about Christmas this year.
So pretty
and we'll be
soon.
headed down for about a month, I think it is.
You should go sometime.
I'd love to.
That'd be cool. No pun intended.
It would be great.
All right, Karin. Thank you.
Very
Great story.
interesting. Thank you, Karin.
We've been experiencing the coldest temperatures and wind chills of this season this week.
And as tough Wisconsinites that we are, we like to think of ourselves as very experienced dressing for the cold.
Yes, and just in case, we decided to get some tips from someone who's an expert in dealing with the frigid temperatures. We have some current temperatures right now in Antarctica. You can see how some of those are actually close to the freezing mark, especially in western Antarctica.
It's warmer than here.
Yeah, warmer there than here, but you know, notice there are a couple of temperatures down to as low as 40 below. So Matthew Lazara, he's the principal investigator with the Automatic Weather Stations Project. He's been to Antarctica 9 times, and he gives us some expert advice for dressing for the cold.
Put on the parka. Here you go. Great, big red, as they like to affectionately call it. There you go. How's that feel? You in good shape, Dan?
Yeah.
Okay. So the system here in putting on the clothes is a layering system. Okay. And so I always enjoy putting this on someone who's wearing jeans, which we aren't very nicely today, because jeans are what? They're made of cotton. Cotton traps moisture close to your skin. If your skin gets wet, you would risk for it to what? Evaporate, make you feel cold, and have frostbite. Dangerous. And I never really appreciated it much until I made the mistake of doing it one time, and I'm like, oh, this is terrible. Don't ever do that. So we instead wear layers of fleeces. So you would wear a polar layer fleece like this. You know, we would even have, do we still have the, yeah, we do. Here we go. We would even wear a synthetic underwear layer underneath that. And the idea is that these layers wick away the moisture, but hold in the heat. And because you're wearing multiple layers, and if you look through some of our pictures, when the weather is really nice and you're too hot, we'll take off Big Red. Why get sweaty and really hot? That's not a good idea. So we can be putting on and off clothes as we need to be at the right temperature and not have, not be getting wet or get cold or anything like that.
So what's a normal amount of layers?
So I would generally wear at least the 3. So I'm going to have for example, this would be, my underwear layer for pants. This would be the polar fleece layer for pants. And then I would have a wind pant that I would put on. So there's
just 3 layers.
Just the 3 layers, yep, absolutely. I wore this, and of course, you have a really nice boot. This is the standard U.S. military issue boot. It has big air spaces in here that keep you, actually, because dry air, amazing enough, is a really decent insulator. So, but we wear a really good sock, a nice wool sock, and this is amazingly soft. Isn't that nice? And the inside, it's even really good. And you want to have some level of comfort in being able to get your foot into this, change your socks every day, like Mom said.
You just wear one sock.
Yeah, because you don't want, if you get your feet too scrunched up, then you end up
getting hot.
Wow, hotting or blocking off the circulation. Those are all not good ideas. And then with all these layers, and you would do the same on top. You would have your underwear layer, you would have a polar fleece, and then, I would be wearing some sort of eye protection. Either definite sunglasses. If it is a blowing snow situation, I would have goggles. I would put those on as well.
Because I bet the ultraviolet rays are really bad on your eyes,
Sure,
right?
because you're getting them 2 ways. Not only direct from the sky at you,
but bouncing
reflecting off, and, oh, that's right, Antarctica is where there's a thinning in the amount of ozone we have, right? The effect we call the ozone hole. And so because it's over that area, you have to, we wear sunscreen.
I was going to say, you must
Absolutely.
get sunburned really easily.
And you put sunscreen in places you don't expect to. The underneath of your nose.
Oh, because it bounces up.
The underneath of your ears.
Oh, sure.
All these places that, underneath here, because it's coming up at you. We do have actual, head items that we would wear as well. So, neck gaiters and hats, and I think full balaclava. If you want to put one of these on, you can get your face to kind of show out through this.
Yeah.
So I always ask, students, I was like, okay, you've got gloves at home? And they go, yeah, okay, we're mittens. Do you have liners? Yeah, okay. Then we would put these on. Here you go. How's that? They put one of those on.
It's like an oven mitt.
Isn't that great? Okay, here we go. Put this one on. Perfect. There we go. Very nice. All right. This is why all the plugs on the weather stations are big.
You have to do all your work.
No,
with
I have to admit, if it's nice enough out, I will wear, I usually have a glove liner that I wear when I go out to work. That's allows me to have all the finger dexterity and not touch metal and then get frostbite. But otherwise, yeah, when you're lugging tower and big stuff, it's nice to have.
So you just have a little liner under this.
Actually,
and then
you can wear
enough?
two layers if you wanted. You can have a glove liner or a mitten liner, and then the actual mitten, and then this if you really wanted
this
to.
doesn't even. I mean, this doesn't feel that thick to me.
Yeah, but the goal here for all these things is the wind blocking
the
idea,
layers.
right? It's like the idea of a windbreaker. So
Okay.
when you put these things together, and I wore every stitch of this when I was at South Pole -69, and I was okay. I was like, wow, it's a good thing I have these clothes on. Otherwise, it'd be hard outside.
That's all you wore when it was 69 below, and you were okay.
Yeah, and I had all those layers on, and I was comfortable.
This is warm.
It took you a while to put all those layers on,
And I didn't
too.
have the pants on.
How does this coat feel?
It's hot.
But
But I'm going to go walk the dogs.
And the surprising part, yeah, that would be perfect, right? The surprising part, though, is that it's just 3 layers on the bottom and 3 on the top, and that gets you down to 70, 75 below.
Wow.
It's
Those-
amazing.
The
These
boot,
off?
look at those boots. Those are something.
Yeah, feel them. Feel how heavy these are.
5 pounds?
I mean, that'll give you a good workout walking around in those.
And they have a valve on them?
They have a valve so that they can let some air in while they're flying, and then they close it off so they don't let the snow in when they're walking around in the
Interesting.
snow.
And there's a group of UW researchers there right now, right?
Warm. Yeah, so the group that we featured, this is part of the same group that we featured about a month ago, and they have a couple people down there right now. They're actually stuck at McMurdo Station because the weather has been so bad. They haven't been able to get out to install some of the weather stations they wanted to install out in Western Antarctica. So
This is incredibly warm, this
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah, for walking the dogs.
And all set to go.
We'll see if the UW can hook you up.
Very
Thank you,
interesting.
Karin. Really
Thanks,
interesting.
Karin.
Yeah.
You have,
still get some.
you have an update on a story you brought us last year.
I do. So I don't know if you remember the story we did about a group of ice drillers. They were the Ice Drilling Design and Operations Group. They're based out of the University of Wisconsin. And the group designs and maintains large drills for the National Science Foundation for their research in Antarctica. And when we talked to them late last year, they were putting the finishing touches on their Agile Sub-Ice Geological Drill, which is also known as the Async Drill. And it's going to be used for climate studies coming up. And this week, I was invited to see a full test of the drill before it gets sent to Antarctica later this year.
We have a 50-foot well here filled with ice, and at the bottom we got about 6 feet of rock, and we're doing testing of both configurations, or both media, I guess. So we'll go through the 50 feet of ice and then do some rock, which represents what we'll be doing in Antarctica.
And what do you hope comes out of today's test?
We're demonstrating that the rig is going to, perform, and finding any issues that come up before we get out there and have no resources. So yeah, we'll make sure it works and make sure we know how to work it.
You ran into a little problem today with some of the testing.
Yeah.
What was that?
I guess we did. We just had this spring broke, and we're going to have to get it replaced. It won't take too long. We'll be back in business here pretty quickly.
And that's part of what holds the tubes in place?
Yeah, that's right. That's the foot clamp at the base of the rig there. It holds the tubes.
So drilling can't happen unless you have this spring, right?
Right, yeah, just
Okay.
one spring, but we'll bring plenty of spares to Antarctica. We've been, as part of the testing, that's what we're trying to do, is identify what issues we have and fix them, and just daily fixing minor issues.
Everything's been minor so far. Everything's pretty much run as planned.
Well, it's minor once it's behind you, I guess, and everything's working now, so.
It's minor here, but it would be major in Antarctica,
well,
I suppose.
For sure, yeah.
And since there aren't any hardware stores in Antarctica, having part of the drill breakdown could become a big problem. So the team will continue the testing until they're certain everything is working properly. And the drill is scheduled to be shipped to Antarctica in August and will be used in West Antarctica this coming December and January.
Bring extra springs.
Yeah, I guess so. They learned that lesson this week.
They did that testing right up in Stoughton.
In Stoughton, yeah,
Wow.
of all places. They have a hole there that they're able to use. It's 50 feet of ice, and then there's some concrete, and then they're able to drill into the granite that you saw, that tube of granite, and they think that that's a pretty good simulation for what they'll be doing in Antarctica, where they'll be drilling through about 700 meters of ice and then into the rock layers there.
Pretty amazing.
Interesting.
All right. Thanks,
Thanks,
Karin.
Karin.
You're welcome.